Well, away from the current fighting, people in Ukrainian towns which had previously been held by Russian forces are now trying to restart their lives. In towns like Bucha, where mass graves are being unearthed, residents are processing the horrors they endured under weeks of Russian occupation.
While the fighting may have ended in Bucha, mourning is far from over. Locals here are struggling to deal with what they went through.
I just prayed today to stop crying. I didn't stop crying for a whole day. It's very difficult to talk about the war. We need to come to our senses and then talk because we've survived these horrors and are constantly crying.
The bodies that horrified the world a fortnight ago are gone from the streets, but the Russian troops' actions are fresh in residents' minds.
They chased people like they were on a safari. They tried to take the highest positions on the top floor of houses so that they could see everything.
In nearby Borodyanka, much of the town has been left in ruins. Rescuers are still searching for bodies beneath the rubble. Dozens of residents remain missing and feared dead. While in Borodyanka and Bucha, the worst may be over for now. Far to the east, in Kharkiv, residents are still living under relentless bombardment. In just the last few days, more than a dozen civilians have been killed by Russian shelling. At least 5 more died in strikes on Sunday. Survivors are traumatized.
You know when a dog hears a bang and it starts to tremble all over even if the noise is far away? I'm like that now. Everything, every part of me is trembling.
Unfortunately for Kharkiv's inhabitants, the worst may still lie ahead. Ukrainian officials warn that Russia is preparing for a fresh assault on the battered city.
Let's look at those Russian preparations with DW correspondent and Russia analyst Konstantin Eggert. Welcome, Konstantin. It's been 3 weeks since Russia announced it was shifting its focus to Ukraine's east, but that offensive doesn't appear to have got off the ground yet. What's holding them back?
Hello, Phil. Let me speculate a little bit, if you allow. I think that the Russian generals are not very keen on this major offensive that was announced, as you rightly said, quite some time ago. Because first and foremost of all, they already know that Ukrainian resistance is very, very stiff and very professional. So casualties are very much in the order of the day, major casualties, major loss of materiel too, plus maybe non-achievement of those goals that Putin's put in front of them. And they know already what Putin does to those who, in his view, do not serve well. Well, the mysterious fate of the commander of the Black Sea Fleet, who disappeared from the public even when his own commander of the Russian Navy was in Sevastopol, probably tells you quite a bit about the fear that, well, if I were a Russian general, I'll be very, very reluctant to undertake any specific major offensives now without very, very explicit and forceful orders.
Right. And Mariupol, which has seen so much damage, now the principal focus of the battle. Remind us why it's so important.
It is important because it is a major port, and it is a major point, major city that will, if fallen to the Russians, will help create a land corridor between the Russian Federation proper and the Crimea, something that Putin wanted to achieve actually since 2014 when he annexed the peninsula. So, and also it's become symbolically important. There is so much being said, even on Russian propaganda television, about the importance of Mariupol that you just can't go back on that. You can't leave it alone in a certain way, but it will be extremely difficult because it is still a very, very significant, I would say, mini fortress for the Russians to take. The Azov steel mill, from which our colleague reported, it is basically kilometers upon square kilometers of territory, which will be extremely difficult to take. So I think expect very heavy fighting. But I'd say that probably Russian forces will still continue to shell indiscriminately, because in this situation, it's better for them than to undertake basically house-to-house fighting.
Right. But President Zelenskyy has said that wiping out Ukrainian soldiers defending Mariupol would mean the end of peace talks. Does President Putin actually care about peace talks now?
Well, I think that Putin doesn't care that much. For him, the peace talks are mostly kind of window dressing for the public domestically and for the West to say, well, you know, I'm a peaceful man. I'd like Zelenskyy to surrender. I suppose that Zelenskyy is just signaling that he's defiant. And in one of his interviews recently, a day or two ago, he said that basically the aim is to retake the whole East from Putin, which is basically an offensive order for the Ukrainian troops. So he's defiant, and I think that really the fate of Mariupol now looks a bit like, forgive me the comparison, it's become a Ukrainian Stalingrad. And in this respect, it's a major symbol for both Ukrainians and Russians.
OK, thank you for that, Konstantin. Konstantin Eggert.